I've got my green.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. People are still coming in, so don't mind the little head moving around on your Zoom screen.
Yeah.
My name is Aisha Dixon. I am the director of the UCLA Emeriti Retiree Relations Center. And I'm so glad to have you all here to learn more about all the trips that you can sign up for. We worked hand in hand with our Retirees Association. I am recording today's Zoom, so I can put it in the cloud somewhere and then upload it to YouTube. And I will send out the link later on this afternoon or tomorrow. So that way, if you miss anything, you have to take a bio break or leave, please feel free to go ahead and do that. Please mute yourself in case you have an animal or a gardener, landscaper in the background. We want to be able to give our speakers their full attention. So again, I'll turn it over to two of our travel chairs, Dolores Dyer, Sue Barnes, and then JFehan is here with Collette. So without further ado, Dolores, it's all yours.
Thanks, Aisha. And thanks everybody for coming today. We hope that you can join us not only with our Zoom meetings, but eventually on one of our trips. I'm your co-director of UC Travel. And also our other co-director is here, Sue Barnes. Sue Barnes, raise your hand. She was going to tell us a little bit about what our group does. Go ahead. So over to you, Sue.
Hi, everybody. I recognize some of you. Those who don't know me, I'm a UCLA retiree, retired in 2019, and I was Aisha's predecessor at the Maritime Retirees Relations Center. Before that, I worked for 22 years at UC Davis. But just a little bit about UC Retirees Travel so that you know what group you're supporting when you travel with us. You are supporting the Council of UC Retiree Associations, and that's a mouthful, but the acronym is CUCRA. It's a volunteer group, sort of like Staff Assembly, for those of you who are familiar with Staff Assembly, but for retirees. So each campus and lab retiree association has a representative that meets twice yearly with the UC Office of the President to advocate for retiree benefits. And CUCRA, among other things, was responsible for developing the healthcare facilitator program, for encouraging campuses to offer free or reduced retiree parking, and for maintaining retiree health. So when you travel with the UC Retiree Travel Program, you support CUCRA's work in advocating for retirees. Okay, turn it back to Dolores.
Thank you, Sue. Sue is also, just wanting to remind you, we have 5 escorts. 2 are out of town, which is Vicki and Sandra. I'm also an escort on the trips. Sue is also an escort. She will be our escort. Somebody mentioned Morocco, that trip coming up in 24. Sue will be your escort in Morocco. One of our other escorts is Frank Truba. Frank, can you raise your hand? Say hi, Frank. There's Frank. Frank's one of our other escorts. He just came back from that fantastic trip to Egypt. And in 24, he will be your escort to go to Australia and New Zealand. What we're going to do now is, when we get started with Jay, is we're going to take the questions after Jay talks about each adventure, and jot them down as he's talking. When he finishes, we can take the questions then, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Hopefully at the end, there will be about 15-20 minutes where we can do some more questions and Q&A. And let's see, what else was I going to talk to you about?
Dolores, do you want them to put the questions in the chat?
Yes, please put the questions in the chat. We will read them to Jay as he's speaking. And then at the end, we'll probably have some more time to go over that. And if we can mute everybody as we go now into Jay's description of what's going on, so that we don't have to hear the phone ring and like my dog bark and the gardener outside. So just want to let you a quick one. Jay has been with Collette for over 30 years. And before that, he was a tour guide. He was also the business director for Collette. And Jay, it's up to you. Take it away.
All right. Everybody can hear me okay? Okay, great. Well, we have such an exciting lineup, and I love showing slides. So this is going to be fun.
Okay.
Oh
my gosh, he's got the slides in green. What does that tell us?
I know. Isn't that a sign, huh?
Yeah,
and of course, one of the first things we're going to look at today is Ireland. How appropriate is that? So anyways, I'm Jay with Collette. I've been there 33 years, long time with one company. If you don't know who we are the oldest tour company in the US. We've been around since 1918. So we're 105 or 6 years in business. We're family owned. We're on Wheel of Fortune quite a bit. So if you do watch Wheel of Fortune, you've probably seen our trips given away. We are a 4-star tour company. So good hotels, good sightseeing, nice pacing to the trips. What we're actually best known for is our insurance, which is, I know, an odd thing to be known for, but about 50 years ago, we launched insurance that nobody else offered. And so it was very unique. And it is cancel anytime, any reason insurance. And that was really unheard of. I know more and more companies are trying to emulate it and copy it, but it's, we just feel if you can't go on a trip, you shouldn't have to go. Because if you go, you're going to be kind of miserable. So when you buy our insurance, you can cancel because of a bad hairdo, a crazy dog, a pimple, whatever. And this includes the day before. I mean, imagine the day before a 3-week Australia saying, I don't want to go. And you get every penny back but the insurance. And we actually give money back, never a voucher. All right. So it just gives you peace of mind when you sign up, knowing you have such great insurance. The insurance covers you medically as well. So if you need an ambulance, surgery, emergency evacuation, need to fly home in the middle due to a family crisis, what have you, it's all part of the insurance. All right. Now, people say to me all the time, Jay, how come you haven't become a vice president of another travel company? Blah, 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 which, I mean, of course would be nice, but I just stay here because there are some companies out there that, in my opinion, aren't very ethical. And Collette tends to do the right thing. And when COVID hit, I was so impressed because all my competitors were saying, here's a future travel credit. Maybe you can go next year. Well, our owner said it's not very ethical for me to keep $4,000 and $5,000 and say maybe next year. So we're really one of the only tour companies that turned around and refunded every penny for people who didn't want to go. So we refunded a total of $174 million. Now, a lot of folks said, hey, I'll go next year, and moved their trips and kept their money in house. And we certainly appreciate that. But I like working for a company that does what's right and isn't about, greed and keeping money. If you can't deliver the trip, you can't keep the money. Anyways, that gives you a feel for who we are. Let's go ahead and take a look at our upcoming trips. Now, every trip has a deadline, and deadlines lately are becoming more and more important, mostly because of the airlines. Airlines are my least favorite part of this job. They're just not fun. So we deal with their rules and what have you. And so our first deadline to come up is next week, actually, and it's for the fall trip to Ireland. All right. Now, why do we have this fall trip to Ireland? I do want to address that too, because we have a trip in April. And what happened was it just was selling out quickly. And some folks missed the deadline and wanted to get on, and it was sold out. And anyway, Sue and Dolores thought, well, do you have the same trip a little later? We'll just kind of have an overflow date. So that's what we did. Now, we've had a few folks talk about, oh, let me go from the fall trip to the spring trip, or the spring trip to the fall trip. Well, once again, it's the airlines. We can't have people bouncing around. I mean, with us, we're a tour company. We're fine with you bouncing around. But airlines don't let us change names. They surely don't let you change dates a month out without major fees. So this is why I always stress. So our deadline to get the lowest locked-in price that you see on the link for the trip is March 25th. All right. So we're talking next week on this one. But this is such a fun trip. And I love the fact that it goes up to Northern Ireland. All right. Now I'm going to move through this one quickly, because obviously the spring trip we've showed 2-3 times. So people have seen the Ireland trip, and I don't want to bore you all with it. So I'm going to kind of keep moving, but we have plenty of space on this September date if anybody wants to join us. This tour goes into Dublin. We're going to have 2 nights in Dublin, such a great city. One of the things I love is we try to have interesting dinners and not just eat at hotels constantly, because that's boring to eat at hotels. So we're going to go out to an Irish house party, our first dinner. This is where you get to see some traditional Irish dancing, some Irish music. You get to hear those songs, Cockles and Mussels, and of course, Danny Boy for the first time, usually of many, but just fun. Next day, we're going to have a choice on tour. So you're going to see these throughout all of our tours. We believe the traveling public likes to have some choices. Some of us are more active than others. Some of us want to get off the bus and do some walking in cities. So I love these choices. Choice 1, take a traditional motor coach tour of Dublin. Choice 2 is to do a walking tour in the historic district. Now on this trip, to be honest, I lean more towards the bus tour, and it's just because it takes you to some spots you can't see on foot. It's going to take you out to St. Patrick's Cathedral, which is always a highlight to me, to get off the bus, go into this gorgeous cathedral. And it also takes us out to the Georgian homes, the neighborhoods where you get to see the famous doors of Dublin, you know. So I usually opt for the bus trip on this one.
Jay, one quick question. Can someone who uses a small scooter, would they be able to go on this trip?
Well, that gets tricky. I mean, as you know, the ADA laws are only for North America. So when you get to Europe, they don't have a lot of ramps, elevators, what have you. Ireland is a little more friendly than most, but a lot would ride on this scooter. First off, how heavy it is, because tour guides and bus drivers are not allowed to lift super heavy items. We don't want them pulling their back and out on disability. So a lot rides on that. Some of them are super light. You can travel with them, but there are going to be some places that are difficult when you leave the US. Let me think. On this trip, of course, Blarney Castle, you could not navigate with the scooter. That most of the hotels have elevators. You know, I think you'd be okay. But once again, it's the weight. We'd have to address that separately. Yeah, but just in general, once you leave the US, zero ADA laws, and especially for trips like Italy and Greece, there's so many cobblestones and stairs. I tell folks, even with walkers, you might want to really rethink any trip to Italy and Greece and Turkey and these places that are just super old, because they're not going to add a people mover, an elevator, a ramp, and disfigure these historic spots. You know what I'm saying? Okay. After your city touring in Dublin, you're free to do what you want to do. All right. Our hotels are in town, so just do what you want to do. I end up at pubs. I can't help it. I'm Irish. I don't know if the shirt gives it away or my fair skin. There's over 700 pubs in Dublin, and as pubs are the social center of any town. So even if you're not a drinker, you should always go into a pub and at least have a coffee, a lunch, a tea, visit with them. There's me having a Guinness. I love the pubs over in Ireland. They're just so fun. All right, next day, we're going to head south, visit Kilkenny, and continue on to Waterford. In Waterford, we do a walking tour. There's buildings that go all the way back to the Viking period, Reginald's Tower and all that. We'll have another choice on tour. So once again, choice on tours are included, as I was saying, but you can only choose one. All right, choice one here is Waterford Crystal Factory. Choice tour 2 is the medieval mansion, all right, or museum. Learn all about the medieval times. Next day, we leave Waterford. We're going to head on over here to Blarney Castle. This is where you kiss the stone and you're given the gift of gab. Some people told me I kissed it too many times. I think Dolores has too. We're talking. Anyways, the Blarney Stone's on the top floor. So you do climb 3 flights. All right. And it's not the easiest thing to kiss. You sit down, lean back, kiss the stone. Isn't that crazy? But anyways, it's a fun stop. Now from there we go to Killarney. We're going to visit Killarney National Park, have a little cruise in the park, and then we're 2 nights in Killarney, which is a treat. That evening we have a dine around. A dine around's where you get a meal ticket and can eat at various restaurants. Next we go Ring of Kerry. All right, that's a real famous scenic drive with a lot of legends and sheep farms and just a beautiful peninsula we'll travel around. Over through the Gap of Dunlow, we'll stop at Ladies View, one of the more famous photo stops. And then the next morning, everybody, Cliffs of Moher. All right, 700-foot drop into the Atlantic Ocean. Just gorgeous. That's O'Brien's Tower that you see there. Yo Grounds, this is actually the hotel we'll be staying at up this way. We've got a couple of beautiful properties on this trip. Now, most of our Ireland trips do visit a farm. People always want to learn about sheep farming and lamb prices and all that. We're going to tour the city of Galway, city of tribes. This is where the Claddagh ring comes from. For those of you familiar with those are the rings with the heart and the hands and the crown. The Claddagh was a little fishing village in Galway. This is our next hotel. I love these old elegants. This one's called the Manor House. We'll be staying at that as we head north. Then Donegal, and then we cross into Northern Ireland. And you know, for many years you couldn't go to Northern Ireland due to the Troubles, and so it's a fascinating place to tour. We're going to visit both Derry and Belfast, and Derry's got this beautiful wall. We're here for 2 nights. You'll hear a lot about the Troubles and what a tough time that was. And for those who aren't familiar with it, that's a part of Ireland that's run by England, actually. And it's basically an argument about pro-England versus pro-Ireland. And of course, that also means Catholic versus Protestant. And I just find it so interesting because I told them, hey, you should come to America. On my street, I have Catholics, Protestants, First Baptist, Jehovah Witness. I mean, all on the same street, and they have this look of horror, like you live in the same neighborhood. And I'm like, yeah, it's America. Yeah, so very interesting, you know. Anyways, we'll have some great sightseeing in Derry, including a walk on the wall. This is their newer Peace Bridge. We'll have another dine around, and then we'll visit Malin Head. This is a gorgeous coastal ride we'll be taking. Then the top attraction in Northern Ireland is this. This is the Giant's Causeway, basaltic rock. It's a national park. It looks in a way like a staircase. It's just beautiful. And this is in between Derry and Belfast. All right, so we'll visit that. Then we continue through the Glens of Antrim over to Belfast for our final couple nights. And what a fascinating city. We're going to do some Irish whiskey tasting, visit a distillery, have a tour, and then, of course, tour Belfast. All right, and you'll see the cranes, Samson and Goliath. These are the cranes that built the Titanic. All right, so very interesting. And of course, speaking of Titanic, after we tour the city, we are going to have an included visit to the Titanic Museum. Of course, I get that Celine Dion song in my head and can't get it out, but very interesting to visit, you know. Anyways, that is our Ireland trip. All right, now a lot of our trips have extensions, so I like to mention these briefly. This is where you can tack on 3 days at the beginning and also 3 days at the end. This tour to Ireland has a London pre and an Edinburgh, Scotland post. All right, these extensions are not guided, but they are hosted, so you're going to have someone local there, and you can read all about them in the links. But some of us say, hey, if I'm going to Europe, I want to see as much as possible. And then, of course, some of us have dogs and things we got to get home and take care of. So we're limited to the trip itself.
Do you have the prices on this trip, or they need to go to the link?
It would be on the link. Yeah, I didn't jot them all down, sadly.
How
But
about
there is
a quick
there's
question.
our
What's
yes.
the transfer from Belfast back to Dublin entail?
Oh, it's a just shy of a 2-hour ride.
Okay. And I checked the weather on Google, and they say it ranges between 55 to 48. And when you fly to the destination, do you fly together or you meet at the destination?
Meet at the destination is what I count on. Yeah, because don't forget, with UC Retirees, we're coming from how many airports? I mean, if there's 8 of you from Los Angeles, my guess is you'll be on the same flight. But we're going to have folks from San Francisco, Sacramento, San Diego. I see there's some New Yorkers on board. So we all arrive separately. But when you do air with us, we meet you at the airport. So I used to be a tour guide. I did that job from 1989 to 2000. And so believe me, I would spend 12 hours at an airport meeting 7 different flights, you know.
Okay, let's see. We have a new one. Is the transfer via train or car?
Belfast to Dublin?
I guess so. Yes.
Oh, that's on the coach. Yeah.
Belfast to Dublin by coach. Okay.
Yeah. And just so you know, we do that because Dublin's a bigger airport. And so Belfast, we could get air from Belfast, but first off, smaller airports always cost more and mean more connections, you know. So that's why we just, on the last day, coach you to Dublin for your flight home.
There we go. We're good to go.
All right. I did want to point out, everybody, we do encourage folks to use credit cards. We don't beg for checks. When the recession hit and 9/11 hit, hundreds of companies went under and check writers lost all their money. It has no protection. So when you read a lot of travel books and magazines, they always tell you, do use your credit card. If by some strange reason we ever went bankrupt, the credit cards reimburse you. You know, and so it's just good to know that. And of course, you know, Safeway doesn't want your check and dry cleaners don't want your check. So you do have to step back and say, why does this company want my check? It's not because of a 3% fee. There's other reasons, sometimes bad bookkeeping, too much debt, what have you. So always use a credit card. All right, this next one has a deadline coming up in about 2-3 weeks. So this is another one we want to give some thought to. Love this trip. I know, Dolores, you're going on this one, right?
Yes, I'm the escort on this trip.
16 days around Greece. Now we do the mainland first. And I love that about this trip, that, you know, the busier part of the trip or the more historic district is the mainland. And then at the end of the trip, you get 5 nights in the Greek Isles. And that's when the pacing really slows down and just gets Oh, so relaxing. Who doesn't love the Greek Isles? And of course, so 16 days on this trip. So we'll start by flying into Athens, everybody. We'll have our 2 nights in Athens. Of course, our welcome dinners out in the Planka district, the oldest part of Athens. And we do have after dinner, you get a bit of a Greek show. They dance and sing, and it's just kind of fun. Next day, after we've had our first good night's sleep, we'll be doing touring in the city, including the Acropolis. They usually take us out by the new where they had the more recent Olympics, the new amphitheater there. There's me laughing at something. That thing around my neck, the orange thing, is our whisper headsets, so you can hear what your tour guide's saying. We have those on all our Europe trips. After our 2 nights Athens now, we're going to head on out. We'll do a visit in the morning to Thermopylae, and then head on up to Meteora. This is home to those famous monasteries. They would build these for protection and isolation. Meteora had 24 monasteries on these rock cliffs. Just amazing to see. So we're actually going to visit one of them. We do visit one that we can get the bus near, so you don't have to bring your rock climbing gear to see a monastery, but just beautiful. So we'll visit a Byzantine art studio. And then our next spot is Delphi. All right. And Delphi's where the oracle would preach. You might remember in the old history books, people would come from around the world to hear what the oracle, had to say. So very interesting to see the sanctuary of Apollo. You see the treasury where you would make your donation before hearing what the oracle said. We'll visit the museum full of artifacts. We'll see the old theater. So lots of interesting sights there. Okay, from there, our Kochova, we're heading over to the coast now, and staying over in the Gulf of Corinth. We're going to visit a farm, all right, and learn about olive oil production. That's such a big item in Mediterranean food, as you know, considered one of the healthier diets in the world. So need to learn about olive oil, how it's made, what the different terms mean: virgin, extra virgin, cold press. Do some tasting. Next, we visit Olympia, home to the very first Olympic Games. All right. We're also going to have a little Greek cooking class. And then they do a dance class, which is fun. Hopefully a little wine is served before the dance class. Always nice to loosen the folks up to do some Greek dancing. All right. Mycenae is a beautiful area with some ruins, and Nafplio is where we're staying. So you're going to have a choice on tour of visiting the old historic beehive caves and all in Mycenae, or Nafplio will have a walking guide. So once again, choice is yours. There's no extra fee for choice on tours, but you can only choose one. All right. And then this is where now we board our ferries out to the Greek Isles. So traveling just like the locals, we're going to take the ferry out to Mykonos. That'll be our first day. I went there, geez, just a little while before the pandemic hit. I think about 9 months before the pandemic. Absolutely loved it. And you know what shocked me out here is just how clean. You know, I've always seen these pictures and thought, oh, is that touched up? But boy, I mean, look at the grout and the walls. And I thought, boy, if that was California, there'd be spray paint and chewing gum and all that. It is just spotless out there in this old section of Mykonos. Just gorgeous. And then this is a fun place to spend some time. This is historic Mykonos. If you look carefully, you see the bars, the restaurants, what have you. I know some of us ate down there. I took a great sunset picture. Just absolutely stunning. And then after our 2 nights Mykonos, we're going to take the ferry over to Santorini for a 3-night stay, which is really neat to have 3 nights. And of course, we'll do some sightseeing. This is a picture I took at our hotel. There's the pool. I captured a cat in that picture there. Akrotiri is a place we're going to go tour. This is similar to a Pompeii. This is an area that was buried in lava years ago, and they're slowly unearthing it. And so very neat to go in and do the walkways and see what they're unearthing there. But great mix of sightseeing as well as some free time while you're in Santorini. And I loved having 3 nights there. All right, and then our final night is spent back in Athens, because that's where the airport is. So we are going to fly back to Athens, have a farewell dinner, say goodbye to everybody, and then next day flight home. All right, so this tour has a couple of extensions as well. I know it's 16 days already, but some people want to stay even longer. We are going to have Rome available on the front end and Istanbul, Turkey on the back end. All right, so Once again, when you go to the link and you scroll down below the hotels and all, it will say extend your stay, and you click the buttons and the plus signs, and it'll tell you everything included in these extensions, what your sightseeing is, what your free time is, what meals, and same with the Turkey one will be listed below if you want to get over and see the Blue Mosque and the Hagia Sophia and just some of the amazing sites there in Turkey. All right. And there is the link. How are we doing for questions on this one, Dolores?
Well, I think you've answered everything. Any questions? So there we go.
So no new questions on this one.
No
Okay.
questions.
All right. Well, just a reminder that the two trips we need to kind of consider the quickest would be the Ireland and the Greece, because the deadlines are coming soon. The rest we have a little time for. But let's move on from there. Now, we do try to make sure, everybody, that we have some North America trips in the mix. So I know a lot of us love going overseas, but some of us want to stay in America. And this is a great trip exploring the birthplace of jazz, blues, and country. All right. And this is also a holiday trip, which is always fun to travel during the holiday season. All right. If you're not familiar with holiday travel, it's that window in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's not over a holiday. Most of us want to be home for the holidays, but it's the holiday season. And it's really when everyone's doing their shopping, writing their cards, they're at the mall. It's a great time for us to head out, see the lights of a different area, hear the music, and sometimes do a little shopping in an area, that isn't home. All right. So this one has 2 3-night stays with one nighter in the middle, and that's in Memphis. Okay, so 3 nights New Orleans, one of my favorite cities, especially to eat in. If you haven't had their food, oh my God, it's incredible. So day 1, we're going to fly on in. Day 2, we're going to have a choice of how you want to see the city. Now, we do this as a choice on tour because buses are not allowed in most of the French Quarter. So the only way to properly see the French Quarter is to do a walking tour. Now, if we do have folks with mobility concerns, you would probably want to opt for the coach tour. Okay. But it's neat either way. There's so much history in the French Quarter. It's just beautiful. And of course, the motor coach tour will take you out to Lake Pontchartrain, to one of the above ground cemeteries, up to St. Charles Avenue. So you just see different aspects of the city. After that, we all get together for some beignets. Those are always fun and tasty. And then, of course, on day 2 in the evening, we will have our welcome dinner where we get to meet everybody from the tour. Next day, everyone, we head on out to the bayou or the swamps. We're going to do a swamp cruise. I was jokingly say you might see Honey Boo Boo out there, or the Duck Dynasty guys. You never know who's living in the swamps. You just want to be sure to keep your arms in the boat. All right. And then after we do that, we're going to be treated to Mardi Gras World. This is a chance to learn about Mardi Gras a bit and see the floats up close. We'll even get to try the official cake, the king cake that they serve. You might be able to get some beads without flashing anybody. So it's all a bonus. Okay. And then after that, your evening's free to enjoy Bourbon Street. Now from there, we're going to leave and head to Memphis, birthplace of the blues. All right. While we're up there, we're going to stay at our hotel. Will be the guest house at Graceland. And of course, we'll include a visit to Graceland. So you get to learn all about Elvis, his life and times. It's kind of amazing what a humble home he had, because today's celebs have humongous mansions, All right. And then from there, we go to the birthplace of country for our final 3 nights. There's Nashville. And we do stay at the famous Gaylord Opryland Hotel. All right. That's part of the indoor atrium that you see right there. Just gorgeous. I've never been to a hotel like it. I mean, they even have a river cruise inside the hotel. So it's just huge, all done up for the holidays. And of course, we're there 3 nights, so plenty of sightseeing. We're going to go out to the Ryman Auditorium. This is where the Grand Ole Opry was held for many years. They kind of outgrew it and built a new one. But you see this in all the movies, Coal Miner's Daughter, Walk the Line, what have you. This is a chocolate center we'll visit. We are going to have reserved tickets to the Grand Ole Opry on this tour. You never know who's going to be there to perform. RCA Studio B is a fun place. We're going to go and they're going to hit the record button. We're going to see if UC Retirees has talent. All right, because you're going to get to hear yourself singing. And then Country Music Hall of Fame. Always interesting. Even if you don't like country, that's a great museum. And then, of course, we'll catch our flight home. Now, we do have a choice on tour that's very interesting at the Gaylord. You can choose the horse and buggy ride around the property or the river cruise inside the property. Now, the horse and buggy, everybody, the outside lights, the Gaylord Opryland Hotel has the largest outdoor holiday light display east of the Mississippi. So it's kind of neat to see. But anyways, choice is yours there. But what a fun holiday trip. Here is the link for that one. Any questions on that one, Dolores?
Yes, they want to know the weather. What do you think the weather is going to be like at that time of year, given it's at the end of the year, December?
I've been to New Orleans in December and it was about 70, to be honest. Now you'll drop about 10 degrees as you get up to Memphis and Nashville. So you're looking at starting out warm, because think about it, you're in the Gulf, all right, when you're in New Orleans, so very mild. And this trip is after hurricane season, by the way. I get asked that a lot, so we don't have to worry about hurricanes in December. But as you go north to Memphis and Nashville, you'll be low 60s, so cooler. Any other?
Let's see. Oh, how many participants usually per tour?
Oh, yes, boy, I haven't talked about that yet. Thank you. Okay, so as a company, we have two, really two branches of tours. One is our traditional Collette tours, which is what most companies are. That's a 55-seater bus. We max our trips with 44 on a bus, but the average is 37. All right. And the reason our averages are always lower is we make it so easy to cancel that we usually lose about 6 people on every trip in the 2 weeks leading up to a trip. So 37 average, that's on our standard tours. Now we have our small group tours. Those are referred to as explorations. Those go as high as 24, but once again, those average 17 people. And so you're going to see in 24, we're doing a little more in the way of the small group trips. And that's just because folks requested that, especially during the pandemic. It seems like folks are leaning that way. But we are going to have some standard ones too.
One more question.
Yeah.
Price edition for solo travelers, that's going to be on the website, right, Jay?
Yeah, that's on every flyer.
Yeah, on the websites that we direct you to, it'll tell you the cost per doubles and singles and all that.
Yeah, we try to keep our single supplements totally based on hotel rates. The only time I find they're outrageous is when a cruise is involved, because cruise lines for singles, they just love to double the price, and we're not a cruise line, so we have to absorb that. But on standard tours, I find it's not that bad.
I think there's.
Are we good? Yeah, we'll go into 24 now.
Good. Yeah, it looks we're good.
So I think the first 3 tours I'm going to show in 24 now, the next ones are all small group. And I do try to preface those with our purple small group slide. There it is. So these next 3. Now this one, I got to be honest, everybody, we have charted this entire trip for UC retirees. And I was a little nervous about it. But I got to admit, we already have this one half full. So if you haven't signed up yet, it's already half sold out. So you probably want to hustle on this one. But this is our winter trip, and perfect time of year, by the way, to Costa Rica. All right. Costa Rica, world of nature, just a beautiful spot to go to in January, 12 days. I just love what this trip does because it includes Tortuguero National Park. Most companies sell that as an extra. So anyways, this is your map. And notice the multiple nights, and of course you get 3 nights in Arenal. I love that. So you can't go wrong. And this is a perfect trip if you like animals. There's some great animal sightings. Now it's not like Africa where you're seeing huge elephants and all, but birds, iguanas, monkeys, sloths, just, I don't know, fun trip. So we'll bring you through this one. Now the big airport is San Jose. So we're going to begin and we're going to end in San Jose. All right. But otherwise we don't spend much time there because there's not much to see there. So we're going to fly into San Jose. We're going to head out first to the National Park Tortuguero, which is on the Caribbean side. They have no roads in Tortuguero. So all of our travel is by boat while we're out there. All right. And once again, we're going to go out by boats to see the wildlife. This is where the green turtles come and lay their eggs and give birth. The egglings hatch every year. So they have a green turtle research station. We'll be visiting that. And it's just a very unique part of Costa Rica. So I think you'll enjoy your time out there. This is our hotel. Now, we do refer to it as rustic, but to me, it's not really rustic. It's very clean. It has showers. It has everything. Your food is here. We're going to be having our meals right here at the hotel. but they purposely do not have big flat screen TVs and stuff because you're in the jungles. You know, they want you to hear the noise and all that. Now, our guides are all naturalists. So your tour guide will be pointing out the wildlife and talking about them. One of the things you can do on this trip, which I did not do, so I'm glad they send us sometimes to learn. I did not bring binoculars, and I'll tell you, I regretted it because you're constantly looking up at trees, at monkeys, watching them jump around, and it just would have been really nice to have binoculars. All right, and so this is your highway while you're in Tortuguero. Isn't that neat? And here's our lodge pool. Gives you a feel for what the rooms look like. So quite pretty. Just remember you don't have your big flat screen TV. All right, we'll visit a coconut plantation, learn about coconuts, and then as we head back to the mainland, a cacao plantation. This, of course, this is getting more popular all the time, full of antioxidants and all that. This will be our next hotel. I like to put a few hotel pictures in so you get a feel for the resorts there. All right. I don't know if you know this, but Costa Rica is the butterfly capital of the world. So if you are a fan of butterflies, boy, you're in the right country. It's also a bird watcher's paradise. So we are going to have an included float trip. All right. Now, I just want you to keep in mind, this is a float trip. This is not anything from Deliverance or the River Wild or, you know, anything. Okay. They are going to have an optional whitewater rafting trip later. But the one that's included, we don't, you know, put you on a life-threatening, I mean, it's float, all right, but still fun, float down the rivers and all. We're going to have a visit and learn about coffee. Coffee is the #2 industry in Costa Rica, right behind tourism. So coffee is a big deal there. And we are going to include, when you're in the cloud forest, you always want to get up to the top of the canopy and see the top of the forest. So we're going to include the bridge climbs, the bridge walks, they're called. So you go up and walk amongst the tops of the trees and get close to the wildlife. There's a sloth hanging there on the tree. I got to admit, I was so excited when I got to Costa Rica to see my first sloth, because when I was a teenager, my mother called me a sloth and I didn't know what it was. And so I kind of got reoffended 20 years later, you know, but it was neat to see them up close. This is our Mountain Paradise Hotel. We'll be here 3 nights. This is the Arenal region. Here's the Arenal volcano. It's Costa Rica's most active volcano. Okay, this is an interesting choice on tour. Once again, up to you, but I love that we include a zip line. Costa Rica is where the zip lines got their start. And so kind of neat to do that. Choice 1, zip line. Choice 2 is to go out with a guide and walk along the lava fields. All right, so once again, whatever one interests you. I did the zip lining. I had a lot of people ask, what did you think of it? What did you see? And I'm a little afraid of heights. So I'm quite honest. I just saw my life cross before my eyes the entire time. It was kind of scary. All right. From there, La Fortuna is next. Here's our beautiful resort pool. During your free time, everybody, you're going to have an optional whitewater rafting trip. Once again, I know that doesn't appeal to everybody, so that's kind of up to you. The guide will tell you more about it. They'll also have, if you want to have a spa treatment where you soak and get massages and all that, that's available as well. And then from there, everybody, we head down really in the southern part of the country to visit Manuel Antonio National Park, another beautiful park, very different than the others, that this one's right along the ocean. All right, so we'll do some sightseeing, including a boat ride. We'll have our guide with us, of course, and then we head back to San Jose. This is where the trip will wrap up, say goodbye to everybody, and fly on home. All right, so here's the link on this one. Once again, a small group tour. The average is 17, but it maxes at 24, and we already have 12 on board. So, you know, if you're interested in this one, you just want to kind of act on it soon. How are we doing for questions on this one, Dolores?
Are the hotels air conditioned?
Everyone but the jungle. The jungle, because you're on the water, has ceiling fans. And every hotel, by the way, that we use in the world has a hairdryer. They told us that a couple of years ago. I'm like, wow, even out in the middle of the Sahara Desert, there's a hairdryer.
I have an interesting comment. Having come back from the South African trip, which was fantastic. The hotel in South Africa was very much like that one that you were presented, like that's in the middle of the jungle. And when I saw it, I was like dubious, but I'm telling you, it was fabulous because you walk across those little bridges to your different hotels, and at night you can hear all the jungle noises, and it's like, the jungle ride in Disneyland, only you're actually living it. That hotel looked very much like the one I was in. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Was that your one at Chobe National Park? Because
I think so.
yeah,
Yes.
that's one. I stayed there with the bridges. Yeah.
Yes. Like Jay says, this one is all tabled out. Okay, so. And
All right.
once again, I'm your escort and I'm bilingual. I don't know if that's going to be of any help because everybody else is bilingual, but I'll get to use my Spanish.
I forgot you were going on this one. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Once again, these next few trips are all small group trips. So this next one is the same. And I will say this is very near and dear to my heart because I, believe it or not, spent from 94 to 2000, back when I was a full-time tour director. This is where I worked. I did the South Pacific. I did 48 tours. I had kept a journal, so I looked it up one day. But yeah, it was my home away from home. We didn't have this particular trip back then. So now I'm like, oh, I really want to go on this trip because it is so unique. And that's why I love that they call it uncovered, because this just goes to where most tours don't go. So very unique itinerary. This trip, we're going to fly into New Zealand, everybody, but we're going to start at the bottom of the North Island. All right. And that is Wellington. That is the capital of New Zealand. Now, and a lot of tours do Wellington and Rotorua and Auckland and all that. What I really love on this trip is once you leave Wellington and cross to the South Island, which is the gorgeous island, by the way, we travel down the West Coast, and you don't see a lot of tours to the West Coast. You actually don't see a lot of people on the West Coast either. It's a very thinly populated part of New Zealand. But I always loved it because it's just rugged, it's gorgeous, it's just unique. And I think you'll love it too. And we're not just there for 1 or 2 days. We're literally staying in Hokitika plus Franz Josef, all on the West Coast. So the real focus is New Zealand's rugged West Coast. All right. Now from there, of course, you go to Queenstown. Everybody has to go to Queenstown, the most beautiful town in New Zealand. And then from there, we head to Sydney, and we're going to do 3 nights in Sydney. And then we head to the wine country of New Zealand, 2 nights there. I love that we get to the Outback because I know so many people that do these cruises to Australia and they miss the Outback. And the Outback of Australia is 80% of the country. If you miss 80% of the country, you kind of weren't there, in my opinion. But you got to see the Outback. And then we head up to Cairns and get 3 nights there where the Great Barrier Reef is located. So great, just a great trip. And I love the length. If you read any book on Australia, everyone, the experts will tell you, you need at least 3 weeks to see the country. So when I hear people going on a 10-day or 12-day trip, I think, wow, by the time you adjust to the time zone, it's time to go home. To do it justice, you need 3 weeks. So we also have the ability to make it even longer and add 3 nights Fiji on the way home. All right. So once again, choice is yours. All right. But nicely paced too, with several 3-night stays in the mix. Oh my God. I had to throw in an old picture of me as a tour guide. Boy, I'd love to have that much hair again. And the 32 waist. The 32 waist, but we won't talk about that. Okay. So we'll start our trip in Wellington. Beautiful city. It always reminded me a little bit, I don't know why, but I saw Sausalito, a lot of homes on hills, and they have those little staircases and carts you put your groceries in, and it goes up to your home. Anyway, a beautiful city and a great capital. So this is where we're going to begin. We're going to focus a lot on the Maori folks while we're here. We're going to meet them up close. We actually go to one of their reservations, which is not open to the public. So very unique to get on their property. This is their wakas, one of their boats, but they are masters at woodwork. I love their wood products. And then we are going to have a visit included to the famous museum Tapapa, which opened up when I was down there. So I think it was 95 or 96, state-of-the-art museum. But the real focus of the museum is the Maori people, which is, just like our Native Americans, the original folks. They were cannibals back then too, by the way. They stick their tongue at you. It kind of freaks me out when I see that. But okay, so that's our time in Wellington, everybody. Then we're going to take the ferry across down to the South Island, all right. When we get off, we're in the beautiful eclectic town of Nelson, which I love that this tour spends time there because most tours kind of breeze through, but just a beautiful settlement on the top of the South Island. We'll be doing some touring, including a visit to the Nelson Market, which is all local goods. You won't see anything made in China or anything here at the Nelson Market. And it's fun to meet the artists because they're all there. Next day, we go to the smallest national park they have in New Zealand, that is Abel Tasman National Park, do a boat ride there. And now we're going to head down the west coast a bit. We're going to visit Pancake Rocks. It really, when you're there, the way they're stacked, it just looks like pancakes and very interesting. And then Punakaki Resort is where we'll be spending the evening there, right on the ocean. The west coast, once again, is just gorgeous. From there, Hokitika. Now, Hokitika is currently the jade capital. That's their official gemstone. It actually started as a gold rush town, but just a beautiful area. We'll visit Hokitika Gorge, visit the township itself. Here's their beach. And then probably my favorite part of the West Coast. This is just a unique area. There's two side-by-side glaciers when you're down this way. One is the Fox Glacier, the other is the Franz Josef glacier. And it's just so bizarre because usually when you see glaciers, you're in a mountainous, cold climate. Well, here you're in the mountains, but you're also in like a rainforest right next to the ocean. And so people find it very bizarre that glaciers are right next to the ocean in a rainforest. And so it's just unique compared to other spots. And so we're going to spend a couple nights down here. We're going to have a choice on tour. Once again, this one's kind of based on mobility. If you're up to it, you want to do the Franz Josef Glacier Tour. It involves a bit of walking, but just beautiful to get out to that Franz Josef Glacier. Choice B is to visit the little wildlife center and get to see the kiwi bird, which is on every t-shirt and keychains in New Zealand. It's kind of their emblem. It's this poor homely bird that has no wings and it's nocturnal. And they actually have to trick the bird into thinking it's nighttime. So you go into this dark enclosure and the bird's awake. And anyways, but I think you'll love this region. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And and our hotel is so unique. We're staying in what they call a treehouse hotel. So you find the hotel rooms are elevated off the ground. I don't know. It's just really interesting. Okay, so that's our West Coast trip. From there, now we'll travel south and head inland to the Lake District. Gorgeous. Wanaka is first, and then my favorite, Queenstown. I think everybody falls in love with Queenstown, and I'll tell you, the pictures don't really do it justice. It's just stunningly, stunningly beautiful. Those mountains you see in the background are called the Remarkables, and the lake is Lake Wakatipu. And it's just a little action adventure town. In the winter, full of skiers. In the summer, jet boaters, fishermen. This is where bungee jumping was invented, in case you get the urge. It's right outside of town. I did it 3 times. Very scary. Okay, so for sightseeing, while we're there, we are going to do a day trip to Milford Sound. This is a long day, but you just have to do it. It's out to Fiordland National Park, but the terrain is so rugged. They only built one road out there, and you have to take the same road back. But I really never tired of doing it because it's so gorgeous. It's just a beautiful, beautiful ride. This is one of the viewpoints we'll stop at on the way out, the Hollyford Valley. Well, you have to travel through a mountain in a tunnel that they drilled through the mountain, the Homer Tunnel, and you come out to this fjord, which is just stunningly gorgeous. And while we're out there, we're going to do a boat ride, a luncheon cruise. And this area rains a lot. And it's so funny because I would have people say, well, it's raining, I'm going to stay in the boat. And even with all my trips, you'd always find me on the top deck, because when it rains, it's not every day. You stand outside, you look up at that cliff. Now that cliff is just that meter peak you're looking at, just shy of 4,000 feet. And when it rains, there's waterfalls. And to have a waterfall falling down at you 4,000 feet, I said, I don't care. I'm staying outside. I'll get soaked. I'd wear my slick and be outside. Just brilliant to be on that top deck and watch some of the waterfalls, But anyways, one of my favorite days of the trip. I love Milford Sound. Okay, so one of the things I'll just mention, there's that return road back to Queenstown. They do offer an optional scenic flight Doesn't always operate, but you can sign up for it if you wish. Anyways, it's beautiful. It's the heart of the mountains here in New Zealand. And then we do give you plenty of free time in Queenstown too. It's just such a beautiful town to spend time. Next day, flight over to Sydney. Now we're in Australia, 3-night stay in Sydney. Once again, a nice mixture of sightseeing as well as free time. We'll of course go out on a city tour, seeing all the famous landmarks, Circular Quay and over to Double Bay. That's where the real rich folks live. Here we'll travel through the botanical gardens, which are gorgeous. And then of course, we'll have an included tour of the Sydney Opera House, which I think you'll love the backstories. The background history is pretty amazing on that building. And then also while we're in the city, we're going to have an included dinner cruise around Sydney Harbor. And I just love the sunset lights. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Look at that. Okay, so from there, everybody, we catch a flight to Adelaide. All right, and this is a big wine region, the Barossa Valley. So we'll be there 2 nights. We're going to learn about Australian wine, do some wine tasting, some sightseeing, and then, of course, head to the outback to the #1 attraction out there, and that is Ayers Rock. Well, Uluru now. I still call it, in the 90s, it was Ayers Rock, and it's a lot like McKinley and Denali, where we went back to the native name. And the Aboriginal folks called this Uluru. But to me, I still have Ayers Rock in my brain. We're going to stay at the national park, do some sightseeing out there. One of the big traditions is as the sun sets and the rock glows its red color, we'll have champagne and snacks and all that. Do a little bit of sightseeing. That's the Olga's nearby. Anyways, from there, we go to our final spot on the trip. This is a 3-night stay in Cairns. And it is pronounced Cairns, by the way. You ignore the R. And of course, this is gateway to the Great Barrier Reef. So we are going to include a day out at the reef. And what I love with the reef day is you can do as much or as little as you want. All right. We include a semi-sub boat. So for those that don't even swim, you get to see the coral and the fish and all that. Snorkeling is right there. So you can bring your own equipment, or they have the stuff right there to snorkel. If you're a diver, you do want to bring your certificate. And then they do offer an option where you go even further out. All right. If you're really into your diving and snorkeling, you want to do that option. I'm Irish. 20 minutes of snorkeling, I'm done. I get sunburned extremely easily, so I don't usually do the outer reef, but it's there for those that like it. All right. But anyways, what a fun way to wrap up our trip. All right. So that is the 22-day South Pacific trip. Now, once again, you can add time in Fiji on the way home. It kind of breaks up your flight a little bit. We stay at the Sofitel. I've always been a fan of Fiji. In fact, to be honest, sometimes I go there on vacation from here and my friends think I'm crazy. They're like, why don't you just go to Mexico? And I you know me, I don't hold any punches. I probably need a better filter, but I just say, look, I don't want to worry about cartels. I don't want little kids with chiclets begging. I want to be able to eat lettuce and drink from the fountain without keeling over. And this is what I love about Fiji. You know, you can eat and drink what you want. The people are the friendliest people on earth. That they've been voted that, and they just couldn't be nicer. So this is where they filmed Castaway as well as the Blue Lagoon, if you've seen those movies. So a lot of my guests used to say, Jay, this is what Hawaii used to be 50 years ago.
Mhm.
So I didn't get to Hawaii 50 years ago, but I kind of get it in that it's not overly developed. But once again, I think what I love about it is the locals are so sweet and welcoming. And that's why another tidbit, if you ever look at the home healthcare or home nursing industry in California, #1 ethnic group, Fijians. And it's because they're the most caring people out there. So anyways, a little cocktail party trivia. Okay, here's the link on that one. I'm thinking we must have some questions on this one. So we're going to open it up.
We have had one question, Jay, and it's that you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, well, thanks. I love looking at pictures. I could do this till
There you
midnight.
go. There you go. I've had a few comments and people definitely wanting to know that it's being recorded, and I've said yes. I think I think there's no questions because you really answer all of them, you know? So
Well,
no
especially
question.
this area. I spent all those years there, and I know things change, but
I'll take a second look just in case. No questions. No, you're all good.
all right. Okay, well, let's look at, I think this
And I
might
did
be,
mention that Frank, who is here in attendance, he will be the tour guide on this trip.
oh, yeah,
I'm seeing the
great.
escort. I'm sorry, escort. Frank is the
Great,
escort.
Frank. That must be exciting. Such a neat trip. All right, this next one's a small group tour. So we've had 3 small group tours right in a row: Costa Rica, Australia, New Zealand. And then we have this one, which has been on my bucket list forever. And I'm finally going there in November. Very excited. Colors of Morocco. And I think, Sue, you're the escort on
That's
this one,
right.
if I'm
Sue
not.
is our co-director, and she is going to be your escort on this one.
Oh, well, one of my former managers just took this trip and I was loving her pictures. And anyways, this one does a circle around the country, everybody. We're going to fly in and out of Casablanca. Our first hotel will actually be in Rabat. So we fly in, transfer to Rabat. But I do love the pacing on this trip, that once again, we're going to have 2 3-night stays on the trip, Fez and Marrakesh. And we're going to do 2 nights in the Sahara Desert. We actually used to do 1 night, and so many people said that was amazing, we want more time. So now we made it 2 nights. All right. Total trip time though is 15 days, so great length. And I gotta admit, I think this trip's a steal. Last I looked at the price, it's $2,500 a week or less. I mean, that's including air. You can't go to a Mexican resort and lay on the beach for that. So what a bargain this one is. Okay, we'll start by Casablanca, transfer to Rabat. Of course, we'll go out and do our local sightseeing. We'll visit the necropolis, one of the mausoleums. Always interesting when these leaders die. This is Muhammad's mausoleum. They would bury them in a first-class fashion. And of course, you're going to see a lot of Casbahs on this trip, which is neat. Now, after our 2 nights Rabat, everybody, we're going to head to Fez. We're 3 nights in Fez. We are just outside the city, going to stop at a winery and have an included winery tour, as well as lunch and wine tasting included. And then, of course, get settled in. And we're here for a 3-night stay in Fez. So lots of history in Fez. We'll go out and tour the Royal Palace. Of course, visit the old historic Medina, the market. They have one of the oldest tanneries in the world where you tan the leather. That's a top attraction. I love this picture. The poor Diet Coke man was laid off and replaced by a mule. I mean, how crazy. Here's the tannery, though. This tannery is over 1,000 years old. And it's so interesting to see how they would tan the leather, because they would use bark and berries and different materials. And the one that stays with me that someone told me about is white. When you see the white, it's pigeon poop. And I thought, boy, remind me, don't buy the white wallet. You know, I don't want that hanging around. But look at some of the finished products, just gorgeous. So anyways, time in the market as well. And then our hotel's kind of unique. And that's another thing about small groups we like, is we can stay at smaller, boutique-ish, unique hotels. Well, one of the things we like to stay at there in Morocco is a riad. All right. A riad is it's an old palace that has now been turned into a small hotel with limited rooms. But with an average group size of 17, I mean, what do we need? 9 rooms, 10 rooms? So our riad is just gorgeous. This gives you a feel for it there. Okay, from there now, our destination, we're going to head towards the Sahara Desert. All right, we do have a 1-nighter in the mix in there to, break up any long rides, but we'll head through the Atlas Mountains over to Erfurt. We're going to learn about dates. Dates are really a big thing in this part of the world. I didn't know there's 90 different types of dates. So very interesting to learn about the traditions, do some tasting, learn the nutritional value and all of dates. But I think a major highlight of the trip is spending time in the Sahara Desert. So a couple things you'll hear about, everyone. When we get there, we're going to say goodbye to our bus driver for 2 nights, because you cannot drive a bus into a sandy desert. We are going to have little suitcases or tote bags that we're going to take for our 2-night stay. Obviously, if our bus can't go, our humongous suitcase, the main suitcase, can't go either. There's no bellman with carts in the desert. All right. So we have our tote for our 2-night stay. We board these 4x4s and head out to our tented camp and do our sightseeing. But once again, everybody loves it. We are going to do some sightseeing in 4x4s, but another highlight is we are going to go out on camels. And usually we go out on the camels for the sunrise or the sunset. And how interesting is that? I mean, it's like one of those pinch me moments when you stop you and your little groups watching the sunrise or the sunset in the Sahara. All right. While we're there, though, we'll do other sightseeing too. Music display. We're going to visit one of the nomadic folks communities, that move around and actually live in the Sahara Desert. And then our lodge. We do eat as a group. There's really nowhere else to eat, so we include the meals while you're out there. But what's fun is in the evening, because just like that Costa Rica Jungle Lodge, there's no TVs out here in the Sahara. So we're going to have some chats, some storytelling, some dancing, music while we're out there. And of course, one of the real highlights is to go see the stars, because when you're away from city lights, the stargazing's amazing. So we are going to do some stargazing while out in the Sahara. All right. Okay, that's our 2 nights there. Then we're going to come back to the mainland. We're going to be traveling on the road of 1,000 Casbahs. Just a beautiful part of Morocco. Our destination is a UNESCO World Heritage Site of Ait Ben Haddou. Here it is here. This is an old city that's been used in a lot of movies to be Israel in the old days. And one of the things I found so interesting, see that gate in the front of the town? That was added for the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe. And it just looks so good. They've kept it. So you have this historic city with a Hollywood gate in the front. Anyways, from there, we're going to continue to Marrakesh. And Marrakesh, we're here for 3 nights once again. All right. So I love the 3-night stays on these trips. This is our hotel. So we're at a gorgeous hotel as well in Marrakesh. And of course, sightseeing. We'll have lots of sightseeing out to the Bahia Palace, the market. Our choice on tour is kind of interesting. So 1 is the botanical gardens, but choice 2 is all about Yves Saint Laurent. I don't know if you know about him as a designer, but he lived in Morocco for over 20 years. And if you look at his fashion, a lot of it is kind of Moroccan influence. So there's your choices there, the choice on tour. We are going to have a cooking class operated by a woman's cooperative. So it's kind of neat to help make some tangine, some food. And then, of course, our final stop on this tour will be Casablanca. So this is where the tour first flew in. This will be our final night of the tour. While we're there, we are going to go out to a mosque. And I don't know if any of you have been to mosques. I went a long time in my travel career without going to one. And I just love them because they're amazing. I mean, some of the biggest chandeliers in the world and biggest carpets, and there's no pews to sit in. And so they're just very beautiful. They do have an extremely conservative dress code, though, and your tour guide. And of course, your documents, we'll talk about that. But you pretty much have to be covered head to toe to go into the mosque. And you have to take your shoes off, which my very first visit to a temple where they said, take your shoes off. I was so embarrassed because I work for Collette and I take my shoes off and I have a big hole in my socks with 3 toes sticking out. Anyway, yeah, I needed therapy after that. But anyways, farewell dinner there, and then we'll fly on home. All right. There's an extension. This is kind of a newer extension on this trip too, just so you know, to the famous blue region of Morocco that sits to the north. So you would fly in early, first night Casablanca, and then go visit and tour the blue city. All right. So including a visit to Tangier. So anyways, you can read about that on the link. Okay, how about questions on this one?
Oh, but the question that we thought would come up was Ramadan will be at the time that we were there. How will that affect shopping? Someone mentioned the stores are closed from sundown to sunup. How will that affect shopping? And like you mentioned, to the mosque.
Well, we already looked into that. Yeah, because we have tours actually over Ramadan. You guys are only there for 4 days of Ramadan, the final 4 days. But no, places are open because tourism is a big industry. So the only difference is the locals might be kind of hungry. As you know, they don't eat during daylight hours. So come 5 o'clock, if that were me, I'd be quite cranky by 5. But there'll be shops open.
And the weather. What's the weather going to be like in April? What do you think?
It's one of the best months to go. So generally the nights are cool. You definitely want to be prepared for the nights, but your daytime 60s, low 70s, beautiful, but just chilly night. So especially the desert, make sure you have good sweater and jacket.
Jay, I just want to add also that I have read that actually it's really interesting to go during Ramadan because you see the that month of the year is a very interesting time to go because of the different celebrations and festivals and recognitions that you will see that you won't see any other time of the year.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
And Jay, what you mentioned, even though you didn't talk about it, coming up will be our going to historic France.
Oh, yeah, I know. I have slides on those, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, no worries. Any other Morocco questions?
Pete
That's about-
Rodman has his hand raised, Dolores.
Oh, Pete, yeah.
Yes, I think you may have said it, but I just want to make sure for non-Muslims, you can visit a working mosque, an active mosque.
Oh, yeah, we have to. You just can't show up, though. I mean, on all of our tours that go to these, we have reservations. They have certain hours that visitors can visit, and our tour guide works on that.
Very good. Thank you. We really enjoyed this today.
Oh, well, I'm not
Sure.
done yet. If you have a few more minutes now, are there any
got a
more
few more
Morocco
minutes.
questions before? Okay, so I always like to just let you know what's in the works, at least with Collette. I know there's other OAT trips and stuff out there. But anyways, you like my flashy coming soon in 2024 slides?
That's
So
great.
we'll be talking about these down the road, and we're just getting these set up now, everybody. And just so you know, I try to limit how much I show, because obviously if I start talking an hour and a half, 2 hours, people like tune out and have to fall asleep and what have you. So we'll be addressing these in the future, but we just want to let you know what's coming. This first one I'm super excited about because I just took this trip in August of last year. So about 6 months ago. Loved it, absolutely loved it. This is a trip to Croatia. But what's really neat is we do a 7-night yacht cruise on this. All right. And I had never done, that's part of the reason I did this. I've already been to Croatia, but I thought I've never been on a yacht. Let me take this trip, and absolutely loved it. So it's 3 nights land, 7 nights on a yacht. All right. The yacht has 18 cabins. So really in such a beautiful country. So I did want to show you the yacht. And I want to address the cabins too, because when this becomes available for sale, it becomes, well, a couple things. So first off, this tour has the earliest deadline to sign up I've ever seen. And I remember when they launched it, I said, boy, you want people to sign up a year in advance. Why? I don't like companies that want me to pay off stuff a year in advance or book a year in advance, because to me, it seems like they need the money, a money grab. But they explained to us they have to put a deposit on the yacht departure. And they said, if we're not going to operate the date, we need to know. So we don't need it paid off a year out. We're not one of those desperate companies, but we need your deposit in to know you're going a year out. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so I just want to explain that. But I also want to explain the cabins, because this was big to me. All right. So the very top deck you see, everybody, that's lounge chairs, shady. There's actually a jacuzzi up there. I don't know if you see the little box jacuzzi, but that was so fun to sit in a jacuzzi it was like a pinch me moment. I'm in a jacuzzi on a yacht on the Adriatic coast. I kind of thought I was having a dream. The floor just below it, everybody, is the bar and restaurant. All right. And then of course in front of that is where the captain and them work and do their thing. The third floor down is the upper decks. All right. Now these cost a little more. You're going to see when you go to sign up, it will say, do you want main deck or upper deck or what have you? I did the main, and I'm glad I did. I loved it. First off, you'll see the size of the windows, but you'll also see the doors right there. And so when I open my bedroom door, I'm outside, and I love that. All right. There's 10 upper deck cabins. All right. And then if you look below those white buoys, those smaller windows, that's the lower deck. There's 8 cabins down there. Okay. So I just thought I'd point that out. So this ship has 18 cabins. If everyone has 2 people in a cabin, you can do the math. 36 people would be the absolute max on this trip. Although there's always some singles, and I had a small group on my departure, but you just never know. Now, I went in the summer. We're going to offer this in the summer. And I know some people right away are saying, why? Well, this was on my bucket list, and it might be on yours too. I don't know. But one of the pictures we always had since we launched this is a bunch of people swimming. And I thought, if I go on a yacht on the Adriatic, I want to swim off my yacht. It was just one of those, things I wanted to do. And so this is what I loved about summer. I wanted warm weather and warm water. But yeah, on a few occasions on this trip, they are going to lower the back and you just jump into the ocean, you know? So a lot of us picked up our own floaty. Some people flew over there with a floaty. I bought mine over there. It's a donut floaty. I thought how appropriate. Love my donuts. But anyways, fun trip. So you'll see this launch soon. And of course, you know, there's 3 nights on land with Zagreb and Šibenik, and we'll talk more about it. But I just wanted to let you know this is coming soon. And this one has a super early sign up window. Okay. Next one we're going to do is a World War II. This is the 80th anniversary of the D-Day beach invasions. So we're going to have this trip. And just keep in mind, this trip, you know, has a lot of war focus on the history of World War II. All right. So you'll see right here, we're going to start in London. I mean, there's so much war history in London. After our time there, we'll head down to Portsmouth, where the troops took off. And then you'll see the next 3 nights are in Cannes, which is just south of the Normandy beaches. So we're actually have 3 nights there to explore all the beaches, the Utah and Juno and Normandy, and even we'll even go to Pointe du Hoc, where they climbed the cliff during the invasions. And then after those 3 nights, our final couple of nights are in Paris. All right, so very moving trip. We've done these every 5 years. So of course we did this same trip for the 75th anniversary of the D-Day beach invasions. And of course, I've been around a while. So we used to have the soldiers on these trips. And then through the years, of course, they're gone, and we had their wives, you know, the widows, and then the kids that go to see where dad fought. So it's just very interesting, the stories people bring with them on these trips. So anyways, that's coming next year. This is one for September that we haven't officially set up yet, but Dolores and I are still looking at it. We're going to do something to the Alpine country region. And this is the one we're looking at the most, is the one with trains and boat rides to
Trains, boat rides, and lakes, right?
yeah. But nothing official yet. We haven't released our tour yet. So that's what we're kind of waiting on there. But this gives you a feel for it. I mean, who doesn't love Switzerland and a little bit of Italy? Go to Lake Como. Okay. And then coming in November, this will be a small group trip again. This is a small group, but this is a trip to Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and ends in Thailand. All right. So lots of 3-night stays: Hanoi, Hoi An, Ho Chi Minh City. Of course, we stay at a beautiful national park, Hulong Bay. We stay on a 5-star junk boat, they're called. Just beautiful ship out there in the middle of those prongs. And then, of course, to go to Laos, a lot of tours you don't see in Laos. We'll visit Angkor Wat, Cambodia. So neat. And then the trip wraps up in Bangkok. And of course, if you want to stay in Bangkok longer, there is an extension there in Bangkok. And of course, we're going at a great season after the monsoon season, so don't worry about that. So this is coming in November of 2024. Anyways, hopefully that gives you a feel. So on any of our trips, if you want to go early, want to stay late, just let us know. You want to fly business class, let us know. We try to work with you.
We have an interesting question here. 5 people who went to South Africa said they're in for Asia, all 5 of us, so they can't wait to get that posted.
Oh, nice.
Someone also mentioned, Jay, an interest in Antarctica, and I think Collette does an Antarctica trip.
We do, yeah. We partner with National Geographic and do a trip down there. It's expensive. I mean, yeah, but we do it. People love it. I just had a crowd come back. They absolutely love it.
How long is that trip, Jay? That's a ways away. That's what.
Yeah, that one's about what, 13 days or so. It's once again a small group. In fact, when you get on that big ship, there's only 148 people on the whole ship. And obviously it includes all your excursions. They're done on Zodiacs. And the partnership with National Geographic's kind of neat in that it has lectures. It has an underwater expert. So, I mean, it's a trip of a lifetime, but it is about $20,000 and up with air, with everything. So, I mean, sadly, it's out of my budget for a while, but I know it's on people's bucket list, you know.
Is there a price you think on that one? What do you think?
I just mentioned it, $20,000. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, 20 to 24.
20 to 24.
Yeah.
And as
and
all these trips get posted, they will be on the Kukra UC Travel website. And I did post my email that if you have any questions, you can reach me on the email and, we'll look into it. We'll try to answer all your questions ahead of time so that there's peace of mind when you travel. We're trying to make with our UC Travel a very personalized travel. We're not going to send you to the magnificent call center and you'll be on hold for 20 years. Call Sue, email me. I'm the one that works with Jay, with Collette. I'll be happy to answer your questions, get the answers, find out what you need to do so that it's a relaxing, pleasant vacation. Like I mentioned to everybody when we were in Africa, it's not a competition to see who gets to the top of the Matterhorn. There's not a trophy at the end of all the trips. We're there to have a good time. I mean, I know you look at these and you say, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can climb those flights of stairs. You don't have to. We can stay down below, go to the shops, go spend our money. It's all about having a good time. So
Yeah. And when we try to advise you, if there's a physical concern, let us know. We'll address it. And we also include air on all these trips. But if there are some folks that have 200,000 miles with United. If that's you, let us know. You can do your own air. We'll strip the air price out. So don't let that be a hurdle, but it's good. We like to have that air price included because it just gives you kind of a real price of the trip instead of all that starting at stuff that marketers do. I just want to remind you of our insurance because it's different than other companies. It's cancel anytime, any reason. And you get every penny back minus the insurance. All right. So makes it so easy. And of course, you're covered medically on the trip. And then we have a loyalty program at Collette. It's different. We don't do percentages and this and that. It's just kind of a flat. When you come home, you have 150 off for 1 year. After 1 year, it drops to 100. After 2 years, it kind of zeroes out. We'll always advise you about passports and visas. Passport you need, of course, to leave the US. Visas just vary country to country, but we'll let you know when that's needed. It's usually a lot closer to travel to some of these spots, and some of them are online, some of them you mail off your passport. So we'll keep you posted on that. And then just a reminder to try to book early. I don't know what's going on in California this year. I know people don't buy green bananas, but I get folks trying to get on a trip that leaves in 3 weeks or even a month. And I'm like, even if there's 10 open spots, I can get you on it. But I'm not an airline. What are they going to charge 4 months or 4 weeks before a trip? The price will have gone through the roof with the airline. So love to have more people all the time, but it's just I have to deal with those airlines,
we do have
So
a couple
anyway,
of questions, Jay.
all right, I'm pretty much done with pictures. So fire away.
Traveler that said, Collette is fantastic, so inclusive. We loved it. We highly recommend that South African trip. And
Thank you.
I just wanted to mention to everybody that on the trips that I've gone, and I think both Sue and Frank can tell you that the tour guides are absolutely outstanding. The tour guide in South Africa was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And they really go out of their way to make sure that we're taken care of. So
yeah. Oh, good. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you guys had such a good time in South Africa. I love it down there.
Oh, Mimi had a question. Costa Rica trip cost does not include airfare. Yes, it does, right?
Yeah. Well, they should. Every trip has air. Yeah. Oh, you know why? It's probably because that one's so cheap. It looks like it doesn't, but it does. Costa Rica is kind of a cheaper country. So yeah, 12 days and what is it? 3,800 or something. It's really reasonable.
Right. And the Morocco trip is an absolutely terrific price.
That's it. I mean, some people see $49.99 and say, oh, but that's $2,500 a week to go to the African continent and to stay at those gorgeous hotels. I have a friend who just went to Cancun and paid $2,600. And I'm like, just to lay on a beach and have booze and have kids with chicks.
And then when you figure how far you're going and the
Yeah.
airfare, when you figure it's not like Cancun isn't bad, but going all the way to Morocco, that's one of those, 15-hour trips. Right?
Yeah. So pretty amazing. Any other questions that you can see there?
I want to thank everybody for coming to our Zoom, and please try us on one of the trip. Like I say, you can find Sue, you can find us on our website. And other than just coming to the Zoom, I hope you'll join us. These trips are really fantastic. I find the prices are terrific. The people are a lot of fun. I've got to meet a lot of people that I basically, you know, I got on my last trip, I met somebody who said they remember seeing me walk around while I was at UCLA. We've had a lot of people who've had such a good time that they want to repeat another trip, which is great. So thank you very, very much. Jay, you were fantastic as usual.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Dolores, I just want to add that, you know, in the trips I've escorted for the UC Retirees Travel, the thing that really stands out to me is that because we have a shared experience, even though we worked on different campuses or maybe in a lab, the camaraderie and the instant connection that people have one another just makes the trips really fun. So, you know, you can travel with anybody, of course, but I really encourage you to consider traveling with UC Retirees Travel because we all share something in common. Fun. That's it
Thanks
for me,
again,
Dolores.
everybody.
Right. Thanks, everyone. Happy
Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a great St. Patrick's Day.
Got it. See you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.